kaya pwede pa rin sundin. Hindi importante kung ano ang binubulong, basta kadiliman lamang ang dapat isulong. Naririnig mo ba ang sigaw ng katarungan? O tuloy sa paglinlang ng kampo ng kadiliman? Kadiliman laban sa kasamaan, sino ba ang makikinabang? Kanino tayo sasama para sila ay matuwa?
Alright, yan. Magandang araw mga kabatas natin at welcome sa isang mga live stream. Mga kabatas natin, ito nga, no? Patapos na tayo dito sa ating pag-cover ng oral arguments ng Philhealth. Yung nakaraan lang. Of course, hindi pa ito tapos. Pero meron tayong parating. Okay? Ang parating natin, mga kabatas natin, ay yung hearing sa 2025 budget. O, ngayon, mga kabatas natin, andun daw si Representative Quimbo. Isa siyang star witness. Star witness siya doon, mga kabatas natin. Okay? So, it's very, very interesting and exciting to see her shine. Kasi nga star witness eh, di ba? Kasi siya yung witness, mga kabatas natin, sa mga blanco. At siya rin yung may alam kung ano yung duty ng technical staff. So, aalamin talaga galing sa isang star witness. Tanong sa akin, si Quimbo, star witness siya doon, ano ba? Pwede ba siyang ipasok sa witness protection program? Hindi na kailangan. Kayang-kaya naman bumili ng bulletproof na car yun. Anyway, mga kabatas natin, dito na tayo. Okay? Tapusin natin ito. Mabilis na lang naman. Ay, parang hindi pa. Pero, recap sa nangyari, mga kabatas natin. Recap sa nangyari. Ang sinasabi dito ni Honorable Japar B.D. Maampaw ay paano yung doctrine of operative fact. Sabi niya na kung saan yung mga resulta ng pagtatransfer ng pondo ay mamimaintain kahit magrurule yung batas natin na illegal yung ginagawa. Okay? Sasabihin ng Supreme Court, illegal yan o hindi yan ayon sa batas. Pero yung epekto niya mananatili. Yun yung doctrine of operative fact. Pag nangyari yun, mga kabatas natin, although illegal yung nangyari, hindi na ibabalik yung pondo. Inargue ng mga petitioners dito, mga kabatas natin, na hindi pwedeng maging ganon kasi it will be a deadly precedent. Ibig sabihin, uulit-ulitin na lang yan as a loophole para makapagnakaw ng pera yung mga tao. So, dapat merong managot because it was actually done in bad faith. Yung sinabi nila. Okay? Tuloy natin.
Operative fact. Can we add to what my colleague has pointed out? The operative.
Proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you very much. The operative fact doctrine is based on the court says it should look at the effects and rule based on equity and fairness because it's a rule on equity. So you have to show the one who implemented the law, did they do so in good faith? We will point out the government's action have budgets of bad faith. But before that, Your Honor, let's also look at the effect. Is it equitable? Is it fair to the people when they took away the Philhealth funds? Clearly, it's not, Your Honor, because the law clearly says those funds are for the health of the people. And our people, if you look at PGH, just right in front of the Supreme Court, early in the morning, hundreds of people line up because they cannot afford healthcare. They have to line up in our government-funded hospitals because they have no choice. Philhealth should have provided that choice. So it would be.
Sabi ni Roy Joy Gaya, wag sa SC bias yan, sabi ni Atty. Claire. Hindi naman niya yata sinabi yan. Wag naman tayong magsabi ng hindi tama. Okay? Okay? No matter how you hate a person, you still have to do everything in good faith. Especially arguing. And wag nating labanan ang fake news ng fake news. Let's not do that. Let's not be like them. Okay?
Inequity if we do not return the money. Now, did they took the money in good faith? No, Your Honor. Why? The law is clear. They should not have taken it. Then we go to COA. Let me point to the COA observations published in the COA website for GOCC's 2023. Your Honor, when they took the money for Phil...
Pwede yan, pwede. SC is Supreme Clear. Implied lang. Doon kasi tayo nadadali dyan eh, di ba? Doon sa mga ambiguities nila eh. Alam mo naman yung mga yan. Tapos magdidepensa na naman sila, tinitwist nyo.
From Philhealth, it was actually triple whammy on the Philhealth members. Why? Number one, they took the money in contravention of the law. Number two, when they took the money, their computation was wrong.
Not SC but judiciary and implied. Yun nga, paglalaroan kayo na naman dyan.
The co was saying the 89.9 billion, even assuming the computation is correct, is even assuming that their formula is correct, rather.
May I remind you that my time is very limited.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Please expound that in your memorandum.
Yes, Your Honor.
Correct. Oh. Unnecessary kwento na kasi yan.
Please.
Kung ano lang yung tinanong nung justice kasi, yun yung dapat mong sagutin. Otherwise, you'll be taking the time of the justice. Hindi niya matatanong yung mga ibang gusto niyang tanungin.
Thank you very much, Your Honor, for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you. May now has the...
Sabi ni Lou Wuji, Attorney, salamat wala kang pinapanigan. Meron akong pinapanigan. Kaya nga batas natin to eh.
Mr. Counsel, I call your
Counsel
name.
for respondents.
Anong pangalan niya? Mr. Ocampo? Mr. Ocampo, next time you seek the permission of the court before you speak.
Yes.
You just don't bat in there.
Correct. Ba't niya nga ginanon?
Anong pangalan niya? Mr. Ocampo?
Oh, ang bait nga ni di maampaw. Pero ganun talaga yun. Bakit? Pati sa practice, sa korte, you should always wait to be recognized.
Mr. Ocampo, next time you seek the permission of the court before you speak. You just don't bat in there. Thank you. If that's the case, then let's have a recess. We resume after 30 minutes or 20 minutes.
Thank you, Chief.
Kaya nag-recess sila, kumain-kain sila, tapos mas short pala yung sa akin kaysa dito.
Consult the Black's Law Dictionary, clarity and understanding.
Ito.
Sorry, you still have questions? Okay. Okay. Go ahead. Justice Japs.
Thank you, Chief. May I ask the counsel for the respondents to answer my questions? Attorney Solomon Hermosura, will you please come forward? Either of you may answer the questions. The continuous provision in this case is Section 11 of Republic Act 11223, that's the Universal Health Care Act, which says that, open quote, Philhealth shall set aside a portion of its accumulated revenues
Correct.
not needed to meet the cost of the current year's expenditures as reserve funds. Close quote.
Okay, napag-usapan na natin yung reserve funds, no? Hindi ko na ipapaliwanag.
It is evident that the law uses technical terms.
Correct.
We ought to clarify the situation or what is happening. We must demystify these technical terms for the court's clarity and understanding.
Oh, ang ganda ng mga terms na ginagamit nyo, no? Let's demystify these legal terms, technical terms. Diba? Para sa understanding natin.
To simplify the discussion, I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation.
Isipin mo, ang bait niya, di ba? Siya pa yung gagawa at magpresent sa mga tao.
First, let's try to understand the meaning of accumulated revenues. Last week, February 25, COA Commissioner Douglas Malilin espoused the view that accumulated revenues refers to premium contributions and government subsidies less normal operating and administrative expenditures and claims benefits. Do you agree with that definition?
I don't know the answer.
Your Honor, I believe that is essentially correct, but if I may add, to include also income from investments.
Income from
Investments. Yes, Your Honor.
Let's be basic. If you consult the Black's Law Dictionary, this is what it says. It refers to total income that has been collected over a certain period. That is how the Black's Law Dictionary defines accumulated revenues, given that Republic Act 11223 does not define the term. Neither can you find
Correct.
a definition in Section 4 of
Kaya
the
nga,
Implementing
sabi ko,
Rules and Regulations of
Hindi ko alam yun eh.
Act 11223. So, with that revised definition, you agree with that definition. Now, having clarified the meaning of accumulated revenues, by the way, those who are listening as law students, revenue is to the government, income is to the taxpayer.
Okay, ayun. Tinuruan tayo. Revenue is as to the government, income sa taxpayer.
The basic distinction or corporation. Revenue, for the benefit of those who are taking up taxation, may include not only taxes, but other sources of governmental income that may include fines, the enforcement of laws, fines, penalties, that may form part of
Kaya pala Bureau of Internal Revenue. Oh.
revenues. Now, having clarified the meaning of accumulated revenues, let's now examine what the law says. Not needed to meet the cost of current year's expenditures. So, from this provision, we really have to deduct that cost of current year's expenditures. My question is this cost of current year's expenditures in light of no clear definition of the term in Republic Act 12223 the same as that cost of normal and administrative expenditures?
Pork barrel is for politicians. Bakit?
In the previous slide.
Your Honor, my understanding about current expenditures are the current, present, this year's operating expenditures of Philhealth. So that includes not only the administrative cost of running Philhealth, but also, and more importantly, the claims that it has to pay, the benefit packages that it has to promote. That is my understanding, Your Honor, of current or present expenditures. And if I may add, while we talk about current expenditures, we should also take note that currently there will also be income flowing in at the same time that current expenditures are being made.
Is it accurate to say that the difference of accumulated revenues and the cost of current year's expenditures is the reserve fund? Is that an accurate statement?
Well, let's say for this year, Your Honor.
No, just answer that. Yes or no?
The reserve fund is taken from the accumulated revenues over
So,
the past years. Your
it's
Honor.
not accurate because, as the law says, portion.
Yes, a
So
portion.
that reserve fund is just a portion of the difference between accumulated revenues and cost of current year's expenditures. Now, since the reserve funds is just a portion, let's level that as X. So how do you now term that X? Can you think of a term that will describe the difference between accumulated revenues and cost of current year's expenditures, given that reserve funds is just a portion of that?
Okay.
Can you think of a term, in as much as the law does not mention any term about such difference?
Okay. Ito yung sinasabi niya dito, ano, yung graph na pinakita niya dito. Yung revenue, 'di ba, na sinasabi niya. Sinasabi niya na kasali. Okay, kasali yung dalawang bagay na yon doon sa revenue. Accumulated revenue. So, may term ba para may i-separate yon doon sa accumulated revenue kapag kunwari kukunin yon o i-distinguish yon para sa ibang bagay. Okay?
How do you now term that
Ito, kasi
portion? Now, since the reserve funds is just a portion, let's level that as
Kasi yung reserve funds is just a portion. So, paano mo masisigurado na parang yung reserve funds? Kasi sabi nila, di ba, doon sila kumuha sa reserve funds. Di ba? Doon sila kumuha sa reserve funds. Pero, syempre, paano mo mai-distinguish o mai-separate yung reserve funds doon sa accumulated revenue? Paano mo nasigurado na nakuha mo sa reserve funds yung pera na nilipat mo? Parang ganon.
X. So, how do you now term that X? Can you think of a term that will describe the difference between accumulated revenues and cost of current year's expenditures, given that reserve funds is just a portion of that? Can you think of a term, in as much as the law does not mention any term about such difference, can you think of a technical term that will represent the difference between accumulated revenues and cost of current year's?
In short, di alam yung pera kung ano ang pangalan niya. Tama. So, nandoon kasi lahat naghalo-halo, di ba? Tapos ngayon sinasabi nila, kinuha namin ito from this particular fund. So, anong term yan? Sabi niya.
Expenditures?
No, actually the current year's expenditures are matched against the current year's revenue, Your Honor.
Can we use this word excess? Excess. In the absence of a clear-cut term, excess.
Kasi ito, sa program reserve funds, di ba? Yun yung X. Accumulated revenues not needed to meet the cost of current year's expenditures.
Of accumulated revenues and cost of current year's expenditures, from that excess, a portion forms part of the reserve fund.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Actually, the COA also uses the term surplus, Your Honor.
Okay. Last week,
Ito, reserve fund. Di ba? A portion of X. Itong X na ito, accumulated revenues. Sabi nila kasi sa reserve fund daw kinukuha. Di ba?
I heard the word gap. There is a gap. Now you are espousing a theory that should be termed as surplus. The literal term is excess. Is the word surplus appropriate to describe such excess? What do you mean by surplus?
Iba kasi ang, surplus. Sobra, excess. Parang sobra din, di ba?
Well, I think maybe excess is not being used because when you say excess, it's like you have money that you should have that you don't need. But this is money that is actually also put into use, Your Honor.
Let's consult Black's Law Dictionary and tell us if the definition fits your theory. The Black's Law Dictionary says surplus is the remainder of a fund or a thing that has been set aside for a specific purpose.
Di ba? Napunta niya na agad. May Black's Law Dictionary na siya agad.
Do you think that will fit that appropriate term?
I am looking at actually at Office Order number 0145 series of 2012 of the Philhealth, Your Honor, and actually it defines surplus as a situation when the current year revenue exceeds the current year expenditures.
Okay, in any case, since the law provides no clear term that will describe that excess or surplus, as the case may be, so when it says portion, so there is that other portion. Do you agree?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so we can label that as Y. Now, can you think of a technical term that will describe that other portion? So, literally, it's other portion because
Yeah.
the portion reserve fund is another one. So let's label it as Y. We term it as other portion.
Actually, we can replace that diagram with, like I say, Your Honors, a circle, like a pie. So the pie represents the total accumulated revenues. That total accumulated revenues, you can slice it into parts. One part is called the reserve fund.
Tama
So in
rin,
this
oo.
case, the total pie is 500 billion. And then you take a slice of that total pie, make it into the reserve fund. That's the 280. So therefore, and then the remainder of this pie, that's the fund balance actually.
Fund balance.
Yes.
So you mean that Y can also be considered as fund balance? Y?
Yes, that's
Pero
correct, Your Honor.
fund balance din yung reserve fund eh.
Because, you know, one way to look at this, Your Honor, is because as I mentioned, there is this office order of the Philhealth that set the guidelines on how they apply this reserve fund.
Yes, but I think with all
Sabi ni Lauro Cruz, surplus is in income refers to the amount of money remaining after all expenses, taxes, and other liabilities have been paid. It's the extra funds you have left over after financial obligations.
humility, this is the simplest way to interpret the provision. When it says portion, so reserve fund is just a portion, so there must be other portion.
That's
Correct.
Yeah,
So
why?
can we consider that as savings, as espoused, I could vividly recall by the Solicitor General, it's not a special fund, this might come from savings.
Your Honor, savings has acquired a definite technical meaning in the GAA and also in jurisprudence. So savings actually refer to those amounts which form part of appropriations, but which have now been saved, so to speak, because of efficiency in operations or because the project or the program has been completed or because the program or the project has been abandoned. So in that case, Your Honor, that part that had been saved under the law may be transferred to other items or may be used to augment other items of appropriations by certain well-defined officials of the government, namely the President, the Chief Justice, the Senate President, the Speaker of the House, and the heads of the various constitutional commissions.
You must be referring to Section 77 of 2024 General Appropriation Act.
I think so.
There are, you mentioned, two sources of savings. These are portions or balances of release appropriations that have not been obligated, free from encumbrance, arising from those two that you have just mentioned. You mentioned about completion or final continuance or abandonment of a program, activity, or project for which appropriation is released. You mentioned about efficiency. That's implementation of measures resulting in the improved systems. And now what about unpaid compensation and other related costs due to vacant positions and leave of absences without pay? Can you not consider that as also a possible source of savings?
From a general or generic point of view, Your Honor, if those plantilla items have not been filled up, then in a general sense, this could be considered likewise as savings.
Does the law, I refer to Section 77 of 2024 GAA, make an exclusive enumeration regarding sources of savings? It may mention only two, but you are espousing the theory that that may also be a possible source of savings.
Yes, Your Honor. I think, I'm not too sure though, but the word among others might have been used in Section 77.
I ask that because that is provided for in GA 2014, Section 59. It is not mentioned in Section 77 of 2024 GA. So that wraps up the question whether it still forms part of the savings, but the law doesn't say only any. In any case, so may I now ask the petitioners in charge of special funds? I will back later on. In charge of, I understand that you divided the issues among the council. So, yeah, thank you.
With the permission of the Honorable Chief Justice.
Well, given this PowerPoint presentation, is it not possible that the source for unprogrammed appropriations may come from Y, which we term it as other portion? What do you think? Can that be the possible source of unprogrammed appropriations?
Your Honor, for me, what is clear is that per admission by the government, as labeled in the GAA, the one that was taken away, the 60 billion so far, came from sin taxes, Your Honor, because the GAA says this is the appropriation for sin taxes.
Just answer yes or no, or no.
No, Your Honor.
The reserve fund is isolated. It must remain untouched. That's why there is a barrier there,
Yes, Your Honor.
which implies that reserve fund must be untouched.
Tama. O yan. Pinapaliwanag yun na. Reserve funds must be untouched.
Yes, Your Honor.
Isolated from the other portion.
Yes, Your
Now,
Honor.
the respondents, please, Solicitor General, is that the one that the government has been doing, that it may source such unprogrammed appropriations from the other portion,
Exactly, Your Honor.
not from the reserve fund?
No, because precisely the DOF circular clearly stated that the GOCCs shall review and reduce to a reasonable level their reserve funds, taking into account
O, di ba? Di ginalaw nila yung reserve funds kasi tingnan mo, reduce nila yung reserve funds. Tignan nyo yung usapan kasi dito ang usapan dito, dapat hindi gagalawin yung reserve funds.
That it may source such unprogrammed appropriations from the other portion,
exactly, Your Honor.
not from the reserve fund?
Kasi
No.
not from the reserve fund.
Because precisely the DOF circular clearly stated that the GOCCs shall review and reduce to a reasonable level their reserve funds, taking into account their historical expenditures for the previous years.
O di yun. Di ginalaw nila kasi di ba babawasan nila yung reserve funds?
And the remainder, meaning outside the reduced or reasonably reduced reserve funds, will be the base for the computation of what should be remitted back to the Treasury. And in that particular,
Sandali wait.
meaning outside the reduced or reasonably reduced reserve fund,
Paano naging outside the reserve funds yung i-reduce?
will be the base for the computation of what should be remitted back to the Treasury. And in that particular example, Your Honor, your Y factor, which refers to the accumulated revenues over the past years. In the case of the PDIC, which is the other GOCC that remitted funds to the National Treasury, These are the unrestricted funds. These are the retained earnings of
Iba na eh.
PDIC. Precisely your
Nililito mo na naman yung mga tao eh. We're just talking about reserve funds sa Philhealth. Ba't ka pupunta sa PDIC? Yung premise mo pa lang na i-reduce nila yung reserve funds, ibig sabihin binawasan na nila. Tapos ililipat nga nila, di ba?
Y factor. And that was the amount that was determined to be returned to the National Treasury.
Any refutation?
Yes, Your Honor. In
Ayan.
the Bureau of Treasury's presentation for the House of Representatives on May 8, 2024, they determined the fund balance as from 2021 to 23 as premium for indirect contributors minus benefit claims. So that's for 2023, 38.8, and then for 22, 24, 2021, 27.1, for a total of 89.9 billion.
We have repeatedly mentioned fund balance. Where in that presentation is the source of the so-called fund
Fund balance.
balance?
Where in the presentation? That's actually my quandary, Your Honor, because they, based on the presentations, they just got it. They just computed it based on their subsidy minus the benefit claims from indirect contributors. That's it. That's how they determine it.
Do you espouse the theory that it may come from the reserve fund?
Yes! Do you espouse the theory? Sabi niya, that it may come from the reserve funds. Kasi nga hindi hiniwalay tapos nandoon lang yun tapos kinuha nyo. Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Correct. Oh.
Refute what Solicitor General's just espoused?
Yung
Yes,
umpisa pa nga lang na sinabi ni Solicitor General, di ba, na i-reduce nila yung reserve funds? Yung premise pa lang na yun eh.
Your Honor.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll ask additional questions.
Thank you, Your Honors.
Thank you. Paragraph 3 of Section 11 of Republic Act 11223, Universal Health Care Act, says no portion of the reserve fund shall accrue to the national government, any of its agencies or instrumentalities, including government-owned or controlled corporation. How do you now reconcile this clear prohibition with the directive of the Department of Finance under the purported mandate of GA 2024 to remit the money to the National Treasury?
You cannot reconcile it. Alam nyo, papaexplain ko yung sinabi niya. Ang haba ng explanation kasi ni Honorable Japar B.D. Ampaw. Okay? Pero ang gist ng explanation niya, may restriction para galawin yung reserve funds. Ngayon, yung reserve funds kasi na yan, kasama doon sa accumulated income. Okay? Accumulated revenue. Revenue pala. Okay. Accumulated revenue. Lahat sila nandoon. Ngayon, mga kabatas natin, pinipilit niya na gumawa ng paraan itong mga defendants, si Government Counsel at saka si Solicitor General, na ihiwalay yung others doon sa reserve fund. Bigyan natin ng term itong reserve fund na ito, bigyan natin ng term itong others na ito. X tsaka Y, sabi niya, di ba? So ngayon, yung reserve fund, sinabi ng batas natin, hindi mo dapat galawin yan. Tama. Sabi niya, tama. Sabi niya ganyan. Ngayon, itong Y, yung others, pwede ba? Sabi niya ganyan. Sabi nung Solicitor General, pwede po. At yan yung ginawa nung ating Department of Finance. Sabi niya, kinuha yung pera hindi sa reserve funds. Kaya, nagtanong ngayon itong si Honorable Dima Ampaw, any counters? Nag-counter yung isa, sabi niya, hindi. Pwedeng makuha yung pondo dahil hindi naman sila gumawa ng distinction galing sa reserve funds. Sabi niya. So ngayon, sinabi ni Honorable Japar Dima Ampaw yung restriction doon sa paggalaw ng reserve funds. At pinagpapaliwanag niya ngayon paano mo i-reconcile yung ginawa ng Department of Finance doon sa prohibition na galawin nyo yung reserve funds. Gets?
funds under the purported mandate of GA
I-reconcile mo, sabi niya.
to remit the money to the National Treasury.
Your Honor, the prohibition refers to any part of the reserve fund or income thereof or therefrom from being remitted back to the general fund of the National Treasury. Precisely, this is what Special Provision 1D and DOF Circular 003 provided, which means that you make your own review of your reserve fund and the remainder, meaning outside of the
Hindi kasi ito kasi ang ginagawa niya, you make a review of your reserve fund tapos yung remainder daw ng reserve fund. Di reserve fund pa rin yun kasi parang ang sinasabi mo dito, nagtatanggal ka kasi nga rini-reduce niyo yung reserve fund, di ba? Parang ang sinasabi niya dito, babawasan mo yung reserve fund. Tapos, yung binawas mo sa reserve fund, hindi na daw reserve fund yun. Tapos, yun yung kukunin mo.
of the reserve fund is what
Diba?
will
Remainder
form
of the reserve fund. Di galing pa rin sa reserve fund yun. Di binawasan mo pa rin yung reserve fund. Tignan nyo kasi, hindi logical yung sinasabi niya.
and the remainder, meaning outside of the that you make your own review of your reserve fund and the remainder, meaning outside of the reserve fund is what will form the basis for the computation of any amount that is unrestricted and will be returned to the National Treasury. So very clearly, Your Honor, the reserve fund had already been set aside.
Yun yung sinasabi niya. Ito na naman yung rason niya. The reserve fund has already been set aside. Pero, napag-usapan din naman nila na hindi mo matuterm o wala silang terminology nung mga bagay na outside sa reserve fund. Kaya sinasabi niya, remainder lang. So, i-determine daw nila yung reserve fund, pero i-reduce yung reserve fund. Yun yung nakalagay sa circular ng Department of Finance.
It's only the remainder from the computation of the unrestricted.
Sabi ni konting segue lang, attorney, mukhang official ang pala 3.0 na. Mahilig naman tayo sa ampalaya kaya walang problema. Kasi pampalinaw yan ng mata. Ay hindi, ano bang gamit ng ampalaya? Basta.
Funds that may be the subject of a transfer or a return to the National Treasury.
Ang tanong ulit yan, sige, given that, what is your basis na pwedeng i-transfer yan from the National Treasury? Tinanong na yan ni Justice Amy. Wala silang naisagot kung ano yung basis ng transfer.
So there is no violation, Your Honor.
As early as in 1961, the Supreme Court, in case of Honorary Archbishop of Manila versus Social Security Commission, your number L-150045, promulgated on January 20, 1961, held that funds contributed to the Social Security, at that time, Commission, created by the Social Security law are not public funds, but funds belonging to the members or contributors held in trust by the government. Is that ruling of the court applicable to this case?
Yes.
No, Your Honor, that is not applicable.
No.
Because the sources of funding for the Universal Health Care Act do not come solely from the contributions by way of premiums of the members of Philhealth. There are many other sources of funding for the Universal Health Care Act which do not come from, let's say, the paying members of Philhealth. That is only a part of the funding sources for the Universal Health Care Act. By and large,
Well, kaya nga meron silang one fund policy, di ba? Which is a generally accepted principle in all health insurance all over the world. Health insurances all over the world.
The majority is from taxes.
Let's delve into Article 6, Section 29, Paragraph 3. That's the Special Purpose Fund.
Yes.
That's the constitutional provisions which says all monies collected on a tax levy for a special purpose shall be treated as a special fund and paid out for such.
Okay, nasobrahan na pala natin. Sabi niya, tinitira ka ni attorney ni Claire, nagmamagaling ka lang daw. Magaling din siya. Thank you, sabihin niyo, thank you. Maraming salamat mga kabatas natin. At syempre, tulad ng laging sinasabi, matulog po tayo na mahimbing dahil alam nyo, na natutulog na mahimbing, syempre hindi nag-fake news. Paalam po, pansamantala.